I never thought I would share my story here, but maybe it will help someone find the strength to break free. I was married to my husband for 10 years. To the outside world, we seemed like the perfect couple, but behind closed doors, it was a different story. He was controlling and abusive, both emotionally and physically. He isolated me from my friends and family, making me believe that I had no one but him. He constantly belittled me, telling me that I was worthless and that I could never survive without him. For years I believed him. One night, after a particularly brutal fight, something inside me snapped. I couldn't take it anymore. I packed a small bag with whatever I could grab and walked out the door. I didn't have a plan, but I knew I had to get away. I drove aimlessly for hours, finally ending up at a motel miles away from home. The next few days were a blur. I contacted a women's shelter and they took me in, providing me with the support and resources I desperately needed. For the first time in years, I felt a glimmer of hope. With their help, I found a job at a small boutique. It wasn't much, but it was a start. I worked hard, saving every penny and slowly rebuilding my life. I also started taking night classes, wanting to learn more about business and entrepreneurship. It wasn't easy balancing work and studies, but I was determined. I wanted to prove to myself that I could stand on my own 2 feet. Over the next few years, I climbed the ladder at the boutique, eventually becoming the manager. With the skills I had acquired and the money I had saved, I took a leap of faith and started my own small business. It was a modest online store, selling handmade crafts and vintage items, but it quickly gained popularity. I poured my heart and soul into it, and it paid off. My business grew, and I was finally financially independent. Then came the divorce. I had been separated from my husband for years, but he finally tracked me down and served me with divorce papers. Part of me was terrified to face him again, but I knew I had to. When we met in court, he was shocked to see the woman I had become. He expected to find the broken, dependent wife he had left behind, but instead, he saw a confident, successful businesswoman. He tried to intimidate me, but it didn't work. I stood my ground, refusing to let him have any power over me. It was not easy to get divorce. Thanks to my lawyer, the judge granted me the divorce after 3 months of trial, and I walked out of that courtroom with my head held high. But my story doesn't end there. The first taste of freedom and success was exhilarating, but it also came with its own challenges. There were nights I doubted myself, wondering if I was strong enough to keep going. There were moments when the fear and trauma from my past threatened to pull me back into a dark place. However, each time those doubts crept in, I reminded myself of how far I had come. I decided to use my experience to help others. I began volunteering at the same women's shelter that had saved me, offering support and sharing my story with women who were in the same position I had been. I started a support group, providing a safe space for women to share their experiences and find strength in each other. It was incredibly fulfilling to see others start to reclaim their lives, just as I had. My business continued to grow, and I expanded it into a physical store. I hired a few employees, many of whom were women who had also escaped abusive relationships. It became more than just a business. It was a community. We supported each other, celebrated our victories together, and lifted each other up during tough times. One day, a local news station did a feature on my store and my journey. The response was overwhelming. People reached out from all over, sharing their stories and thanking me for being an inspiration. It was humbling and motivated me to keep pushing forward. Then, life threw me an unexpected twist. I started feeling unwell, and after a few weeks of symptoms, I decided to see a doctor. The news hit me like a ton of bricks. I was pregnant. As I processed the information, I realized the baby was from my ex-husband's. A flood of emotions washed over me. Fear, confusion, and uncertainty. I knew I had a decision to make. The thought of involving my ex-husband in this child's life was terrifying. I didn't want him to have any control over me or my child. After many sleepless nights and long conversations with my therapist and support group, I made up my mind. I would raise this child on my own. I wouldn't ask for child support or any help from my ex-husband. I was determined to provide a safe and loving environment for my baby, free from his influence. As the months passed, I continued to run my business and prepare for the arrival of my child. My friends and the women from the support group rallied around me, offering help and encouragement. When my son was born, I felt a love and protectiveness I had never experienced before. Holding him in my arms, I vowed to give him the best life possible. The early days of motherhood were exhausting, but I managed. My business provided enough for us to live comfortably, and I balanced work and parenting with the help of a trusted nanny. Watching my son grow and thrive, I knew I had made the right decision. He was happy and healthy, surrounded by love and positivity. Years passed, and my son grew into a bright, curious, and kind-hearted boy. I continued to share my story and support other women, showing them that it was possible to rebuild their lives and find happiness. My business flourished, expanding into new markets and reaching even greater heights. One day, my son asked me about his father. I told him the truth in an age-appropriate way, explaining that his father and I were not together because it was safer and healthier for us to live apart. He accepted it with a maturity that surprised me, and we continued to build our life together, strong and united. As I look back on my journey, I am filled with gratitude. I am grateful for the strength I found within myself, for the support of those who helped me along the way, and for the chance to rebuild my life. I am proud of the woman I have become, and I hope my story can inspire others to find their strength and break free from their own chains. You are not alone, and you are stronger than you think.